We're going to review several things today, but primarily it is our third session, which we planned on reviewing the financial management questionnaire. But there's a couple of other updates that we will provide along the way. Just wanted to welcome you, and we've received a lot of feedback, and we really appreciate the feedback that you've been providing. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, John. And just reminder on the format. The format that we used last week seemed to work very well. If you have a question, jot it down, put it in chat, keep it. We want to get through the information, and then we'll start answering questions as time permits. And also, just keep in mind that if we don't get an answer or we have to take it back, frequently asked questions will be updated. And that's a good segue into the next slide, John, on the frequently asked questions updates. There's a couple of things that we wanted to make sure everyone understood is that frequently asked questions are updated on a regular basis. Please review those, make sure that you see the newest and latest updates. And also, last session, we talked a little bit about network design and NEPA and the next steps. Just knowing that that once you do NEPA, that may change your network design, but the network design does not have to be recertified by a project professional engineer. And then also, several of you have been receiving notifications to accept the application. This is different than accepting the award. This is indicating that you want to move forward with the application to move it into a grant agreement stage, but it's not accepting the award. You're not accepting the award until you execute the grant agreement. That is the step that it indicates accepting the award. With that, we're going to have John present today for the financial management, and then we'll have some others come on after that with some other information. Before I kick it off, team, is there anything that you'd like to add before we hand it over to John? John, it is all yours. You have the helm, sir.
Okay, easy enough. So, hi everyone. My name is John Carlson. I'm a senior financial grant specialist at the CBO. I'm pretty sure we've been talking here and there and everywhere so far. Happy to be at another office hours session with you all. Like Michael said, we're going to talk about a couple of compliance aspects, prerequisites for the BEAD program today. I want to dive right into it. So the first one here, certificate of insurance. This one's going to be a pretty short info session, just one slide on this topic. We just want to remind folks for the requirements of this certificate of insurance. We'll ask you to upload a copy of the certificate of insurance to the grant portal. There are a couple of specific things you need to make sure that are considered. So first of all, the state of Colorado has to be listed as an additional insured in your insurance policies. And also, please take a look at the policy types that are relevant to the scope of your grant and the minimum limits that are listed in the main body of the draft grant agreements that we've sent around. And so that's the main body section 10 called insurance. Take a look at that. We've also got more information about the certificate of insurance in the compliance and reporting guide that's on CBO's website on the compliance page, as well as, everyone's going through these video trainings right now. We have one on the certificate of insurance as well. So hopefully there's plenty of resources there to help you all with that compliance aspect. But if you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat or ask them verbally at the end of the session today, or email them to us and we'll try to answer those, get them into our FAQ as well. So now I'd like to switch gears. I want to talk about the financial management questionnaire. And so before we really dive into the details of this, I wanted to flag a quick housekeeping item regarding this questionnaire. So we recently updated this form across all of our primary channels to meet important accessibility requirements, but also to open the form up so that it's editable and more easy to use. We realized shortly after that the link within the grant portal itself was pointing to an old legacy version of this form. So we've updated that link in the grant portal, and we apologize for any confusion there. The version we're going to be looking at today is the new version. If that looks different than the version you filled out, again, I'm sorry. We're going to ask you to use the current version. The good thing is most of the items are verbatim transferred right over into the new form, with the exception of one section that we'll talk about shortly. So again, I apologize for any confusion there. Hopefully you've not already submitted or uploaded that old version of the form. But if you have, we'll reach out to you about next steps and try to work with you on getting an update. So now let's dive into the details of this form. So the financial management and internal controls questionnaire is like the certificate of insurance. It's a prerequisite for your BEAD grant agreement. So we need that completed, and it needs to be signed by someone with significant authority at your organization. So that needs to be the CEO, the CFO, or an executive director, someone like that. The purpose of this form is for us to use the information to evaluate organizational history, like if you've existed for 3+ years is a specific question. We evaluate risk and the experience of your key personnel in this form. We ask other questions as well. So we would like you to include information for all of your provisional grant agreements. So if you've got more than one, hopefully you can just use this form one time, and that makes it a little bit easier to manage. And then, like I said, we opened this document up to be in an editable format. So we want you to fill it out. You can expand the response sections if you need to. Please do still try and be clear and concise because we have to review all of these. But we made it editable so that it's a little bit more user friendly, and like I said, meets requirements for accessibility. And then you can, once it's filled out, you can sign and convert it to a PDF and upload to the grant portal. So let's talk about some of the most salient sections of this form. We're not going to be able to talk about every single item. That may also put folks to sleep if we were to go through this form point by point. But I do want to cover some of these things. Just in case there are any questions, we can talk about them today. So first of all, accounting standards are covered in this form. So you do need an accounting system that is a little bit more sophisticated than Microsoft Excel. So we'll ask you a few questions about the capabilities of your accounting system, and if that accounting system can do things like identify receipts and expenditures separately for each grant agreement that you may be managing. So that's within CBF, a CBO, or outside. You have to manage your grant finances separately, so there's no double dipping. It also has to be able to record expenditures by the specific budget categories, and all records have to be supported with documents like invoices or timesheets. Um, so there'll be questions about that. Another big important section, and again, we're going to talk about milestones in more detail shortly. I know that's a topic of interest, but a section of this form touches on the milestones as well. Um, we want to know about a strategy for cash flow. So, in between the times where we're making payment to you all, and that's on a basis no less frequently than 6 months. We want to know how you all are going to bridge the gap between those payments. So we'll want you to describe in your own words your strategy for that. Um, I'm sorry, I didn't change to that slide, but it had a whole slide for the cash flow piece there. But those are basically the 2 points that I've made. There is a section on regulatory compliance and policies as well. So you'll again describe in your own words written policies that will allow you to comply with 2 CFR 200. because these are federal grants, and processes for determining if costs are reasonable and allowable. They'll be important for, audit purposes. There'll be questions about internal controls, if you have a process for separation of duties and safeguarding cash and other questions like that, as well as a question about the domestic preference for procurements in 2 CFR 200-322. Um, there'll be at the end some broadband specific reporting as well. So you'll have to confirm for us how you plan to meet specific reporting requirements for speed and latency, subscription information, and process to ensure funds are not used for costs already reimbursed by other state or federal streams. Um, so that's the broad strokes of this form that we're going to ask you to fill out. Again, if you have any questions, please throw those into the chat. We'll try to address those at the end, or you can raise your questions verbally. So now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Judd, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the milestone and payment structure. So Judd, over to you.
Yeah, if you can go to the next slide. So we sent the grant agreement for those at least that have agreed to move forward with your grant agreement. We sent that out. The one section, I believe this is table or Exhibit C, has the milestone and payment structure that we were currently proposing. We've received several comments on that, and that's great. So we thought we knew this kind of module here today on the financial forms would be kind of quick. So we thought we might throw this in there too. We've asked you to take a look at that grant agreement, specifically this table, and get us comments on your thoughts on it by tomorrow, Friday, close of business. So we thought we'd just spend some time here. We came up with these milestones. We are trying to fit more squarely into a fixed amount sub-award. There's advantages for doing that, including you don't have to give us all your reimbursable documentation. You just have to keep that on file. So we wanted to make it kind of simplistic and not have too many touch points between the CBO and the grantees for payment. But we've received some input from this. One would be more milestones. We get it that especially maybe smaller companies need the cash flow up front and maybe more money up front and more money along the way. So we added this optional 3A milestone to say, yo, you could get a 75% milestone as well. But even given that, some people have said, well, could you even add more? So that's one suggestion we've taken under advisement. Um, the other was a NEPA submission milestone. The way we were currently reading our special award conditions was no payments could be made before NEPA approval. So even if you've done all the work and you think you've met a milestone, we can't pay you for that milestone unless NEPA is approved. Then we could pay you for your NEPA approval. We could pay you for some of the things you've done under maybe milestone two. But we just had a call with NTIA. I put an asterisk next to that comment and the next one. We've suggested to NTIA, could we allow some form of payment at NEPA submission? Because we realize, you've done all the homework or most of the homework for NEPA submission, and now it's not in your hands anymore. You don't really control the schedule. So we'd like to see if we could have a milestone payment at NEPA submission. NTIA is thinking about that. We're waiting for FAQ number 18 coming from NTIA. So we'll see if they listen to us. And the next one was in our special award conditions, that's the SAC, section 13E, there is a whole list of pre-implementation allowable activities that you can begin even before NEPA approval. But again, the way we currently read it is we can't pay you for those until you're approved. But we've asked the NTIA, you've listed what can be done. once they do that or accomplish at least some of those activities, and let's say we make those into a milestone, could we pay you for those ahead of NEPA approval? So those two are marked with an asterisk. I'm not saying those are going to be allowable, but those are just some other ideas we thought that might help with the cash flow issues. So I just throw that out there. I see people putting comments in the chat here. We'll keep a copy of those. But if you wanted to get on, come offline and discuss anything, we're happy to hear that. Otherwise, you can send those in via the advance inbox, and we'll look at those and see what we can come up with.
Hey Judd, this is Brian, and I think just real quick before we go on, I think one of the things you can talk to about the NTIA, and maybe you already have, is the key thing in Colorado with our limited build season. And I think that's for most of us, folks that are building up here, especially with BEAD, where we're building in areas that are really, really, really difficult.
Yeah.
That when you talk to the NTIA, that's the biggest thing is that, we may have to stop construction in September and may not be able to pick it up until April. So you've got a project that you're talking potentially 6 months that we have to freeze a project because of the weather. Obviously not this winter, but So I think as you talk to the NTAA, that's maybe something you guys can bring up is, we had this unique scenario that our build seasons are so, up and down. That's the biggest thing is if you're looking at like a $6 million project, if you see milestone versus 2 and 3, there's 30% difference. So that in a $6 million project, that's $1.8 million that could be stranded for 6 months because of build season. That's what I think we're trying to get at here is just somehow close that gap due to the environment we're in.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of mean by more milestones. I would consider adding those under the, I guess, kind of percent complete. So, breaking that up a little bit more, 20, 30, 40,
Yeah.
50, something like that. And I think you submitted some comments similar to that. So that's one of them. And we could certainly consider that. Um, so we'll take that one under advisement. And that's a good point that part of that's not just cash flow, it's stranded cash for
Yes.
a long period of time. So
Yeah, it really, obviously there are going to be companies, but in our case, it's not cash flow isn't the problem. It's the stranded capital. And
yeah,
for most of us on this call, the ISPs, we've got financial backers that stranded capital is something that they do not like at all.
a no. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um, I was reading his comments in the comment field from Clinton. Other states allow a percent of grant reimbursement at contract execution, design completion. Yeah, and we're asking NTA for clearance on that, and I've seen other states that say, yeah, we're going to give you money an upfront payment or upon grant execution. But if you read Section 13A of our special conditions, which I think those are public now, it says no money can go out the door till there's NEPA approval. So I'm not sure how those other states wrap their head around that, but we've asked NTIA for clarification on that. So yeah, and we could consider contract execution, and maybe design completion. We'll take those down too. Can you clarify what's expecting on milestone 2? Michael, you may be able to help me answer this. Grantees engineering and permitting completed and submitted to the CBO. One discussion we've had, I think on the last call and maybe this call, is this may be a permitting plan because on the prior call we talked about you're not going to pull all of your permits simultaneously because sometimes they only last 6 months. So we may say, okay, submit a plan and maybe your first half dozen required ones to get going, and then we'll accept a plan for the rest of them. So that may be what that footnote 1 is, I believe, in the actual grant template. So that's kind of what we were thinking there. We wouldn't ask for them to all be completed.
That's exactly right, Judd. We've had discussions. I believe we're waiting on a clarification question back from NTIA, but that's what we're planning to do because we understand that a lot of our permitting partners will only allow the permits to be open for so long, and then they close the permit, and then you have to reissue and incur costs, things like that. So
Yeah.
we're looking at if you have a project that is small enough that you can to do all the permits and still be within the windows of those permits, we'd prefer that so that we know that it's good to go. But otherwise, we would look for a permitting plan of when you are going to submit for your permits.
Oops. Okay. Yeah, thanks. And then
Mhm.
Clinton asks, pre-deployment activities. Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Pre-implementation activities is what I called it, what they called it in the third section 13E. And we're asking a little more clarification on that to maybe broaden it out even more. But because you can get it's like things like you can go ahead and get leases, you can get uh, equipment and things like that. But it didn't really squarely say you could also start purchasing inventory and things like that. So I think you may still have to manage that one through inventory. But you can take a look at that 13E. That's what the NTAA will allow pre pre NEPA. And then the next question, what timeline should we expect between submission of the milestone information, particularly those based on an enablement and payment? Um,
Judd, I can take that.
okay.
Once you have submitted completion of a milestone, we have a process for for reissuing the payment. And right now, our payment issue is we issue them within 45 days of request. That's the typical time frame that we have, but we've done it. We're continually doing it quicker than 45 days. That's just the maximum amount of time. Um, an on-site verification, this is where we will come out and monitor. So like when you get to the milestone 3 where you've got 50% completion, we'll have a team that comes out and just wants we will verify that you're 50% complete, that you've built out and conduit and fiber is ready to go, things like that.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat what that section 13E will allow pre-NEPA.
And some of the questions, guys, I found them in our frequently asked questions. We did get these questions early on, and we've answered some of them. Uh, for example, the question, Paul, that you asked about the is percent complete calculated by locations passed, or how is that? It is definitely by locations passed that could be serviced if they requested service.
Yeah, and I think that's that footnote number. I cut and pasted this from the grant template, and there's actually footnotes that go with these milestones. Yeah, and I said, Clinton says, right, no purchasing. It didn't list purchasing.
Uh, Let's cover one others here that David just put in there about the NEPA plan. If he had his NEPA plan ready before contract execution, can he submit it to the NTI earlier? We would have to have a grant agreement, from my understanding, for them to tie that to, David. So you'll definitely have to wait until we at least execute the grant agreement.
We're going to
Uh,
fly to space.
yeah, good question there, Amazon Kuiper. We're still investigating how that looks, what on-site verification looks like. We will uh, we'll table that for now.
Well,
We're looking at
also, I'll point out actually, Leo's payment milestone table looks different, and it
yes.
will look different. And I know we're having discussions, I think next Friday with Leo or with Amazon, and it's going to be different. So we're not going to do some of that. Uh, Yeah, and SpaceX as well. Yeah, SpaceX and Leo and Amazon Leo, we have comments from both of you, and we're merging those comments so that we have the same agreement for both of you, I think, as a state. we need to stay somewhat be reasonable and non-discriminatory. So we're giving you both the same agreement at the end of the day.
As you guys are thinking of other questions, keep them coming. By the way, we like the questions because it only adds clarification and may point out something that we haven't thought of ourselves. Um, John, was there any other slides that we wanted to go through while we're waiting on other further questions?
I
Sure.
Okay.
Just a reminder about the onboarding checklist. So some of these things we've covered already, like the financial management form today. Risk plan certification we will cover in a future office hours session, I think, as well as financial surety. We talked about insurance today. And then NTIA requirements to submit the certification of no additional public funding. So these are the different buckets of pre-award compliance aspects that we've been covering. Just keep them all in mind as we move forward. We need all of those. Um, we we have time for questions, but before we do that, let's just look at our schedule real quick. So we talked about the financial management questionnaire. This time next week, we're talking about cybersecurity,
Mhm.
risk management plans, the supply chain risk management plans, and then again the last session there
Yes.
on financial surety. It will be session 5. That might not be the last session, actually. I don't know that, but session
Yeah.
5 will be about financial surety. So with that, I think we could open it up to just general questions or more milestone questions or anything else that folks want to ask while they have us.
On that
Could we go back
financial
a slide?
surety, I put into the chat, we learned that if you're going the bond route, they still call it the letter of credit surety requirement, but then they say you can do a bond instead of a letter of credit. If you're going to go the bond route, the NTAA is going to be coming out with new guidance. They sent it to us that you can get those bonds 60 days after grant execution. So that's good news. You can get that. You don't have to have that prior to grant execution, but if you're doing a letter of credit, you still have to have that prior to grant execution.
Yeah.
So you'll see that in, I think, FAQ 18, which should be coming out soon.
If you go back a slide, John, or two,
Mhm.
maybe. Yeah. One, not right there. Go forward one slide. Sorry, I had to go back too far. One point of clarification is after you have confirmed the application with us and we move that to the grant agreement record stage, that's where you'll upload all of the onboarding information that we're requesting. So once you have provided your information, we've approved it, you've confirmed that you want to move forward with the application as is, we then take it to the contracts group and we generate a record in Salesforce in our portal that we will notify you once that's created for you to start putting in your documentation that's required for the onboarding. Uh, anything I missed there on that one, John?
No, I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay. So, Kurt, to answer your question, if you've already completed the financial questionnaire and confirmed your application, we'll get in touch with you to get the new version filled out. And like John was saying, all the information on the old version is in the new version. It's just more condensed. And then there's the section that clarifies it's not a quarterly payment, it's a milestone based. We do have, Jonathan, I'm sorry, I skipped over yours there somehow. Does the organization have protocols in place to meet financial mandatory reporting requirements on speed, latency, and subscription information? We do have a packet of information on our website that describes the speed testing as well as when you're doing your reports, your monthly reports, as you pass homes, we're asking you to upload those locations that you consider passed and serviceable. And then once you serve them, you would send us in that information again. It just overwrites. Any other questions or
Do you have a
comments?
link to that you could put in the chat?
Cynthia, you put one in the chat?
No, do you have a link to that packet that you could put in the chat?
Oh, let's see real quick. I want to say it's under our resources compliance, isn't it, John?
I think that's right. Yes.
I'll get that here in just a second.
Yeah, Michael, I think we're slightly misunderstanding what they're asking for. I don't know if you want to look at Laura's question there.
Subscription information. Judd, I'm not sure that we identify subscription information other than if once you've passed the location, we want you to report it to us on through the portal that you've offered what speed you've offered for max download, max upload, and then if they register and sign up for you with you, then you would once they've done that and you've done a speed test, you would just update what service they did purchase from you, like the speed, upload and download speed, and then give us the milliseconds delay. That's for the grant agreement reporting. But for speed test, when you close out, there's a whole process for closeout that has all those documents as well as the speed test information and everything. And it is on our compliance page here. It is this link. And if you scroll almost to the bottom, it says closeout documents. And there's the speed test, subscription closeout checklist and instructions, retainage release request, and then the final report.
Yeah, and I think one of the reporting requirements under the grant agreement is how many subscribers have subscribed. And because we have to report that to NTIA as well along the way.
So it's not where you're giving us, person that signed up or any of that type of subscriber information. We're just looking for upload, download speeds offered, upload, download speeds that they purchased, if they did purchase, and then how many have purchased out of the locations that you had.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't clarify it enough with the documentation that I just put that link in there, just let us know and we'll try to figure out what's missing.
Yeah, and we can add that to the FAQs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cynthia, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
So I'm just clarifying here on Jonathan's question. He's asking about the question that's on, I think, the grant acceptance or agreement. One of the questions says, do we have protocols in place to meet those requirements for reporting on speeds and latency and subscription information? So
Yeah.
he's saying, what do you mean by subscription information on that question?
Yeah. That's
So I'm assuming it's much like BDC subscription reporting, correct?
yeah, that's Cynthia. If I didn't make that clear, sorry. What subscription information we're looking for is what service did they sign up for of your offerings? If you offered, like say for example, you're offering a gigabit speed, up to a gigabit speed, and they purchase 100 megabits, you would give us the location that you offered 1 gigabit, and then in the actual purchased or the offered and then the provided field. That's what it's called. The provided upload download speed, you'd put that what they purchased in there, and then the latency. That's all the information we're looking for in those reports. When we do the closeout, we'll be looking for speed tests by location that has subscribed.
So much like BDC, where you've got the availability versus the actual subscribed.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and then for the question, this actual question in the financial management and internal controls questionnaire, we just want you to describe in your own words that process, if that makes sense. That's question number 24 in the form.
And I will clarify that might help Laura on that second question there that you have. If you have a project that has 100 locations and you've reported 100 locations passed, and then within a certain period of time that we're monitoring it, you have 25 of them sign up. What you would do is you would just upload those 25 that have signed up and provide us the information that they subscribed for, which is upload download speed and then their millisecond delay when you tested it. That's the extent of what we're looking for. And a lot of this we'll forget about it. We'll work through this, and then when we get there, we'll have to have the discussion again about what we're looking for with the uploads, with the progress report and everything. So this is not going to be the only time we ever discuss this. We will discuss this each and individual as we do kickoff meetings and as we do monthly reports and things like that. So don't hesitate to ask us again because we'll forget that we told you. Well, are there any other questions or comments or anything that you'd like for us to consider for an additional session? Because we only have 5 on the schedule, but we've opened it up where we could do more. Okay, Julian?
I posted a couple in chat. I can verbalize them
Yeah,
again.
I'm looking at Julian's question there. Um, provided for at least 50 subscribers or 10% of the locations in the proposed project, or whichever is greater. Um, that is the guidelines. We pretty much took the speed test guidelines from the FCC, and then we made some suggestions and request additional information that is not mandatory. So the hard and fast rule is it's going to be 10% or 50 subscribers. If you can only do 50 at a time, if you're saying you can only do 50 total, then just let's have a conversation and we'll figure out what the means of establishing that would need be there, Julian.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
There's a question from David in the chat about NIST approval and whether we have an update on expected time for the contracts to be offered. I answered that yes, we have NIST approval, but I do not know the answer to the other half. I don't know if Jared or Michael.
I filled that in. We have to, so we have the approval, we have the special award conditions that apply. We're reviewing those right now. We have to sign that by the beginning of March. And then once we sign that, I think grant agreements can start to go out the door. So I said
Right.
mid-March.
Yes, that's our target. Just know that based on the um, program guidelines or program requirements from NIST approval, the states have 6 months in total to get grant agreements. Is that correct, Judd?
Yeah, I
So,
think so. So that's why we're kind of waiting to sign this. We want to have some of these seminars so you're comfortable with the grant agreement and
yeah.
you're just ready to sign it when it goes out the door.
And that's also the reason we're moving forward with the application confirmation, because once we have an idea of who's confirming the applications, and if you're going to not confirm it, that's fine too. We just need to know that before we sign our agreement with the NTIA, because once we sign our agreement with those locations on there, we're on the hook to get them served.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, David?
Yeah, that's perfect. That just I keep getting asked everyone on timelines, and so that's why I was asking on NEPA and permitting and
Yeah.
engineering, trying to have
Mhm.
it all prepped on our end so we can go on day one and then be ready to
Yeah.
as soon as that comes back.
I like that.
Sounds good.
So
Sounds good.
on the engineering and permitting, I guess what our plan is, we're trying to get some people out in the field, try to get some more details, try to get soil, all that figured out. So we'll have a revised low level design, as well as having engaged all the permitting authorities. Basically, have all of the permit forms ready
Mhm.
to go. Is that what you guys are looking at to say milestone two is clear, or is there anything I'm not thinking of?
That sounds like a lot of the information we're looking for in milestone two, David, but I can't, off the top
Yeah.
of my head, say that that's everything. But
If we take the way it's drafted right now is all that permitting has to be completed and submitted. I think what we're going to possibly allow for is a permitting plan.
yep,
So as long as you have that, and you said you've contacted all of them, maybe even gotten the first tranche of
yep.
permits you're going to need day one, and then submit a permitting plan. I think that sounds about right.
Okay. It wouldn't make sense to really submit the permits ahead of time because the clock starts running. Any idea how long you guys think reviews would last for you guys? Is it going to be pretty quick, or do you guys think it's going to be like a 60-day window? Like, what should we expect on, ideally day one, we're going to have NEPA and the engineering and permitting ready for you guys to review. I just don't know if they're going to come back at the same time or if you'll need longer for one step or anything.
Mhm. Uh, let's take that one back, team,
Yeah.
and kind of kick that around a little bit and see what makes sense. So we'll get back with you on that, David, and we'll update the frequently asked questions with that question. So would you please type it in the chat so that we can capture it? We may reword it a little bit, but just capture it for us so that we can get that answer for you.
Okay.
Is I think at this time I would ask if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat or send them to us in our email at the advanced email, advanced CBO state. Also, there's the resources that we have available for you to look at and review. If you can't find the answers in those and we don't have it in our frequently asked questions, please by all means send us a question so that we can get it answered.
Yeah, David has a question.
Yeah,
No,
Aaron,
he was typing it in for us so that we can
Oh,
kick it
I did
around.
notice that one. I had a couple questions that I didn't. Uh,
okay.
I am multitasking, but I'm pretty sure I didn't hear them come up. Was that some of the, and I put this in an email to you guys, but the long lead permit times with the milestones of like 50%, that was one of the concerns we have. Like we're leasing CDOT fiber. Right now I've got a request we put in 9 months ago that I don't have. So our concern is we get to, 75% completed on the main line, but I don't have my CDOT dark fiber, so technically the addresses aren't serviceable. Do you guys have an official policy or plan on that, or planning on potentially implementing something?
I
I
think
don't think
we've
we have
been,
an official policy. I think we'll take that
yeah,
one back too. I mean,
yeah.
it's interesting. They NTIA allowed you to subdivide NEPA, so maybe there's a concept like that, but we'll take that back.
Mhm.
Okay, because we just, it sucks as Brian said earlier. Like if you spend a bunch of money, we're dealing with that with one of our contracts right now where it's been 9 months and CDOT said they turn it around in 60 days, and I spent all this money and I can't turn on the first home, and it's frustrating. So to have reimbursements or in this case milestones tied up on that gives a
Yeah,
real uncertainty. It's hard to go back to the well and say,
Yeah,
I'll put another 10 million in my account to keep the project going when they're like, well, you haven't made a dollar yet.
yeah.
yeah,
Yes, David, we hear you, and we know projects may not go smooth and as silk every time. And when these types of things come up within the grant period. That's what our grant managers are here for, is to talk with you, find out what's going on and how we could possibly at the state level help or at the individual level help. Um, we're trying to kick off some different initiatives that might help in those areas. It's just better for us to, we can't plan for them all right now, but it is definitely good for us to hear about them so that we can try to get something worked out beforehand.
Cool. Appreciate it. I mean, you guys are always pretty good to work with. I can't complain at all. So I just knowing if there's an official policy, this is just questions I get asked all the time. I give the
Yeah.
answers that you guys have given us, and someone's like, "Well, how do I know for sure if that's the case?" And it's a fun back and
Yeah.
forth. And I guess the other question I posted on there was on the surety. If you guys have any update, I know that we've talked to a bunch of different investors, and they're like, "Yeah, you need 10% for your surety." And I told them Colorado requires 100%, and they're like, "No way! Every other state is 10%."
Yeah, and I think I typed in an answer there. The 10% is on a letter of credit if you go that route.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just telling you, every other person
Yeah,
I've talked to in the industry outside of Colorado said they are positive that every other state requires a 10% performance bond.
bond. Okay. We'll take a look at that.
I was
The,
just on an NTIA webinar, and that is an NTIA
Yeah.
setting.
I was
100%
just
on a
about to
bond,
say that.
10% on a letter of credit.
Yeah.
That's
that's
much.
what they said.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
I
what
had
I
people
thought.
that sent me, I can probably pull up, but a few people sent me like quotes that they've got on other, I want to say like Arizona or somebody's website. I'm not going to push too much on it. Just everyone keeps telling me there's no way in hell Colorado's requiring 100% and that they have in writing from every other state 10% performance bonds. And that I had not heard that. And it just seems to be a thing what everyone else is saying.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
NTIA
would-
just did their second um, webinar for, what did they call it? Let me look here. Federal requirements for BEAD subgrantees. And
Hmm.
NTIA themselves said performance bonds are 100%, letters of credits are 10% per
Okay.
NTIA guidelines.
Yeah, it was really poorly worded. When they allowed that 10% on letter of credit, they accidentally, I think, threw in there one time the bond, and I don't think they meant to. And it looks like they've clarified that, but it was just very poorly worded when they made that modification. And Craig, I think we'll take that last question
Yeah.
back. I'm not sure Megan is on the call today,
No.
but I think that the rough answer is going to be, it,
I'm here, Jed.
oh, you are. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yep.
you can see
I,
that.
I joined late.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we will need to it's not necessarily a true up. Um, but as the program goes on, we will need to adjust the BSLs based on what's still in the fabric versus not. Um, I don't think that needs to happen prior to um, signing the contract. I think those adjustments will happen afterwards. But we'll get some clarification from NTIA on whether those are allowed ahead of time or not.
Thank you. Yeah,
Great.
I think our approach is to try to grab whatever dot they put on the parcel. So, in good faith, we know which one we're talking about, but the cost quest random number generating machine seems to take one step forward and two steps back, where in this last round, 4 houses are now dots on a barn. So it just seems to waver and go all over the place.
Okay. Yeah, and if you have concerns, you can send those to me. Because we can look into those and bring them in bulk to NTIA or CostQuest, whoever we think it needs to go to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that 1 to 3% problem, right?
Right.
So it's not necessarily a bulk problem, but it's just a frustrating if you're trying to be accurate.
Right. Well, yeah, feel free to send them my way. And then we're aware of it ahead of time and can figure out a plan.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. We look forward to having the discussion next week on the next topic. And in the meantime, keep the questions coming, and we'll work this through and have a great program.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.